Chapter 2.
I'm Eric Cargill.
And I'm Rachel Elnar, and this is Cheers and Tears.
Design leadership tales retold.
Hey, Eric, I know you know who this person is. He's an Orlando-based illustrator, designer, and associate professor at UCF's School of Visual Arts and Design. His work spans animation, editorial design, games, and children's books. He also is deeply involved in the creative community, founding Giant Illustrators, serving on the AIGA National Board, and helping lead Creative Mornings for Orlando. Say hello to Victor Davila.
Hello.
Welcome, Victor.
The bio sounds so much better when you read it, Rachel. Otherwise, it's just like nonsense, but that was awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
She's got that smooth voice, right? It's just
She definitely does.
Kind of,
Just enhances everything.
yeah. She sends you on a journey.
Hopefully this is a great journey, so I'm really excited
Thanks for
to talk
having
to you,
me.
Vic. Of course. No, I mean, you have been always in my feed. You're doing a lot. But for those who don't know you, can you let us know a little bit about your leadership role within AIJ, how long you served on the chapter, and how you got involved in the first place?
Yeah, I've been involved with the local chapter, at least. I'm sorry. Hold on a sec. Honey, can you grab him, please? There he goes. There we go. Thankfully, this one's not live, right? We can.
No, it's not live. Live is fun, though, right?
All right, sorry about that. So I've actually been involved with the Orlando chapter since 2011. I started, that's when they invited me coming in. Sarah Collins was our president back then. She's the one that called me up to the majors. When I first started on the board, I was paired up with Dion Akins, and we were the co-education chairs, and she's the one that started the mentorship, or at least the way we know it today, she started the mentorship program. So I was happy to be able to learn from her. And then I went from that to like membership and to vice president and to co-president and to the president with Devin Hornschmeyer. So that took me all the way through 2020, 2021 or so. And then after that, in the 2019 leadership retreat is when Francis Solana from Dallas Fort Worth chapter suggested that when I roll off being president, that I should apply to get the IPCC, which I did, and I got it, and which led me to PCC, which led me to the national board. And in between there, I'm also still, as of this recording, I'm on the Design Educators Community Steering Committee. So I like to serve, and I like the community, and I learned a lot. And I think it's a little bit selfish because I think it's a big part of my growth. So I say, people are always saying like we serve, but at the same time, I've been learning a lot, and I've been kind of like learning a lot about academia from the DEC and a lot about leadership and things like that. So it's been a really great journey so far, and I don't feel like I'm quite done yet.
What is IPCC and PCC?
The PCC is the President's Council Chair, which is the group of presidents. We would meet outside of the regular leadership meetings, and the role of the PCC would be to be the liaison between the presidents and the national staff and the national board, to be able to kind of communicate and then actually go back and communicate the things that the president's concerns are back to the national board. And then the IPCC would be the incoming. So I was Francis's incoming, so I served with her for half a run, and then I was the PCC, and then Shara Bell was my IPCC. So and then Jen after that. So it was a great. If we ever been to the, I feel like it kind of got. I was always disappointed that it didn't quite work out for me, but the PCCs were the ones that hosted the leadership retreats. So I was always kind of like stoked when becomes like, oh yeah, I could do it and we can host it. It'd be really, really fun. I don't know if you remember like when Gage did it, Gage Mitchell did it and things like that. He was always like very dynamic, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to do that. And then COVID happened. We lost the leadership retreats, and I never got my time on that stage, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
My one big regret.
You definitely have many years of leadership within AIGA. What year and where was your first?
My first must have been 2013. It was in Philly. And that was a crash course because I didn't know what to expect. And I went from being a fairly introverted AIGA board member to I don't think you can be an introverted AIGA member and a leader in a leadership retreat because you get kind of you meet people and then they sweep you away. Um, I remember Nick, the way I met Nick. What was Nick's last name? Prestaleo?
Presley,
Priscilio from Philly. I met him because we were hanging out outside and he was dressed up in that chipmunk costume. And he saw my badge. He saw my leadership retreat badge. And he's like, there was like in an area like where it was like a lot of bars. So random people were coming up to him and hugging him. And he's like, dude, he saw my badge. So he knew he was one of us. So I was like, can you like just be my guard, my bodyguard for a bit while I walked back to the hotel? I was like, yeah. And that's how I met him. And it's just like, it's kind of telling of that's the kind of relationships you start at these leadership retreats. Suddenly you find each other on the streets and then you kind of like swept away. And then we became friends after that. It was great.
Oh my gosh. And you cannot be an introvert as a chapter leader. You cannot be an introvert at AIJ Philly leadership retreat because
Yeah.
Philly just brings out the best and the worst of you in the moment, right? Like,
I was going to say, but if you're going to be at your worst, as least you're kind of surrounded by people that protect you, and that's like you the family that you find at these leadership retreats. That you're like, if you're being a knucklehead, I was like, all right, well, it's like do your thing, but then we got you. We'll take you home. You're going to be safe, and yeah, that's where we find our people.
how many people from your board went to the leadership retreats with you?
I want to say like 4, and that was pretty standard based on the amount of members that we had at that time. I think we had 4. I didn't go to the following year. I think that was Denver, but I think I went to the ones after that. Was it Denver? Yeah. So I went to Grand Rapids, and I think that's where I met you, Eric, or at least that's where we saw each other for the last time. And Raleigh was really great, and Atlanta was fantastic, and I feel like I'm missing one in between Grand Rapids. Oh, Baltimore. Baltimore was really, really great too.
And I never would have guessed that you were as introverted as you were, but by then you had some retreats under your belt, but or a retreat under your belt at least, but because you struck me as very, very outspoken and very you had an integrity about you. You just
Thank you.
the way you spoke was very fair and very, you had the consciousness of the whole in your mind, and it was inspiring to me, and that's what struck me about
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate that. It's funny because I talk to my students about this all the time at the University of Central Florida, where we, because I've experienced it, and I think they've experienced it in some way where you get nervous and you get introverted when you're trying to advocate for yourself. But as soon as you're trying to advocate for someone else, or in our case for our community or our city or whatever it is, we kind of get into the different role, a different mindset. And that's where I find myself a lot, is trying to, it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you guys watch Friends, but remember when Ross was a teacher and he was nervous and he took on a character, a persona who was like British. So he spoke with this British accent to get past his nerves. And it's just like, because if you switch your mindset, but if you're kind of like focusing on yourself, then you're totally nervous when you kind of get. And that's where I find the cool things. It's like one of the things I brought out, one of the leadership qualities that I think I could identify myself is that if I figured out that I'm helping Eric, I'm helping Rachel, as opposed to doing something for me, then it kind of made me feel a little bit more comfortable, because it was like one separation away. And that's one of the things I learned from my time at AIGA.
It's really hard to get students to talk to people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's one of the things that we take upon ourselves when we start. We have to be the example, so I can't be all in my shell if I'm expecting them to be in their shell. So when we go to conferences, when we go to out or whatever local events, I drag them. I was like, all right, here's a chance to talk to someone. And if you can't talk to them, I'll go ahead and introduce you, and then I'll step back and do something else. and they take it from there. And I was happy. Like our local Orlando chapter has a couple of my former students involved in it. One, two, three. Um, so I'm hoping that is, like they see and that's paid forward. So hopefully, um, they saw, I'm hoping that they saw it in me and they were kind of like, oh, well, Vic can do it. If that knucklehead could do it, I could do it. So, so that's what I'm hoping would happen. So, but it's cool to see like the next generation taking over and leading.
How do you balance your time? You're involved in so many communities. AIJ board, AIJ DEC, you've got your UCF students and those communities.
Mhm.
You're part of Creative Mornings. You're doing Creative South. Like, how do you balance all these communities?
Sometimes not very well. And I would say that, sometimes I kind of dropped the ball when I was like, oh, I have to be focusing on this, but this is also necessary. I think with like Creative Mornings Orlando, for instance, we have a really good team. And when we're not, if I can't do anything, the other team, other members kind of like pick up the ball or vice versa. So it's a matter of making sure that you surround yourself with people who have your back and are there to support you. And I felt the same way with the DEC. The DEC is an amazing, I had no idea what to expect when I joined the DEC. And I'm not very academic minded, even though I've worked at the university for years. I struggle with like the academic mind and thinking like an academic, I guess. And I've really learned a lot from them. But they're very, they're teachers, so they're very patient with us. They're very patient with me. So I've been really lucky to have really good leaders and teammates in that group. And just like any other board, um, you have a common goal and they'll support you and they'll support my silly ideas, or they'll rein me in when I need to be. In the same way with at UCF, I have really good partners. My colleague Ashley Taylor over there, and she's, and I also tend to drag people with me. So like Ashley serves with me both in Creative Mornings Orlando. Now she's the VP of AIG Orlando. And when I restarted Creative Mornings Orlando after the pandemic, the people I recruited were a lot of my old AIG Orlando board. Like Devin Hornsmeyer's on it with me. So I like to kind of like travel in a circle of people that really kind of I can speak with, and we speak the same language, and we kind of, get each other, support each other.
So it's not only you who's busy, it's your whole entourage who's busy because you're employing them in all these different places.
Yeah, we drag each other, we travel in packs. That's always done. We always travel in packs, and yeah.
Oh, I
So,
miss
but
them.
yeah, she's
It's
fantastic.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on LinkedIn lately, but Devin always seems to pop up just ever so often, just boop.
Yeah, she's great. She has two kids now. And Cliffy Manspeaker, her husband, he went to a couple of the retreats too. But they've both served, and she's really active, and she's just fantastic because I think I learned a lot from Devin, and we talk each other off like the ledges sometimes, because sometimes there's a lot of overwhelmingness. And we would joke that we spend more time sometimes doing AIGA stuff than we do in our own jobs, but we really like it. We really love it. We really love kind of like talking and hanging out with people and serving this community. So we had this relationship where we'd be talking each other off the shell, off the ledge sometimes, and and that's something you need. Again, it's like we just need someone that's in our corner sometimes that will support our ideas. And I think that's what we're finding with a lot of the national board as well. Rachel and I serving on the national board, we have these ideas that we want to do. So we're always kind of like, it's like, we should do this. It's like, yeah, let's do it, that kind of thing. So I think it's very fluid in how we communicate with each other. And I think that goes with a lot of the folks that have served on chapters or still serve on chapters. We kind of like know how it feels. So it's that kind of that language that we speak.
It's like a mob mentality, right? Even if you want to take a little break, they still keep pulling you back.
And I think that says something about uh, your leadership and the leadership that you've grown within the community, and how you're able to take those lessons and move forward and also teach.
There is a lot of overlap. So it's almost, I would tell my wife that sometimes I feel like AIGA is just an extension of my teaching job, because it's all kind of like the same thing. It's all part of design, but it's all part of community. It's all trying to make sure that everybody is like going in the right direction, or has a facilitate the future that they want to do. So it's, kind of inspiring and teaching. So it all feels like all part of the same job. So I don't feel like I'm moonlighting or something anywhere else. I think it's just, this is what we do, and this is an extension of what we do.
It's part of your personality. It's part of who you are.
At this point, yeah, it's very, it's very ingrained. And we always joke, like, if something were to happen and the organization wouldn't be here tomorrow, I think we'd still be doing what we do. We would just be calling it something else, I guess. But I think at the crux is the community. How do we serve our community, and how do we make things better for our community? And as an extension, part of the thing that I always explain is that one of the things that we try to do with everything that we do is try to shine a light, in my case, on the Orlando community, so that the Orlando creative communities is showcased and people are noticing what we do here, and our amazing creative community, and all the creatives and designers and artists that we have here. So everything's kind of focuses back on that, whether it's teaching or Creative Mornings or AIGA Orlando, or even Creative South, or even Limitless Solutions. Everything's kind of like that,
5. I think I just counted 5. I don't know how many counted.
We got giant illustrators. We have a few things.
So let's talk a little bit about the leadership retreats. I didn't spend much time with you during the leadership retreats. It was honestly a lot of like hi and goodbye, and it was great, but I don't remember a lot of spending with you. In terms of after programming events, whether at a bar or in a pyramid, like, is there any of those events, memories that still resonate with you now?
There's a few. I remember Grand Rapids specifically, and we were on a bus driving around somewhere. I guess it's like those buses that would take us to the different events. And I remember there was a bar at a church, at like an old church. It was like a remade into a bar. So I thought I remember meeting people, and that's when I met Lenny Terenzi for the first time, face to face at Grand Rapids, and we had been communicating through online and sketchbooking and stuff like that. So it was fun to kind of like actually meet him in person. So we hung out with Raleigh, and I think that was around the time that the Raleigh chapter became our mentor chapter, because we were kind of changing a lot of things. And Lenny, I think, was the incoming president, and Matt, I don't know if you remember Matt. No, he was also on the national board, but he was the Raleigh president before that. But he took us on. We started doing the community things, the community meetings like Raleigh, and but it was great. We hung out with the Raleigh chapter, and that was like a really like a seminal moment for at least me as a leader, because I think I was incoming president as well, or co-president. So connecting with a lot of the leaders there, and meeting a lot of these people face to face that I was communicating with, I thought really did wonders for the progression that we had as a chapter. So I think, we went around, and there was like, we're acting fools, acting kind of like, because we were in a safe space, and I don't think I would behave in the same way that in Orlando, because there's too many students around that I do. But we danced, and we kind of like messed around, and we had a lot of fun. We got on those pyramids that were probably a little bit too tall, and people would call security on us, and it was really, really fun. And I just remember in Grand Rapids meeting a lot of really, really cool people like you, Eric, and I remember that was the first time that I noticed that the national board was accessible, because Christine Taylor would hang out after the fact, and she was this kind of like, she looked like a superhero. She still looks like a superhero last time I saw her, and she's just so cool, and she looks so like, she's just so put together, and I was in awe of her. And then when we started talking, she was just so friendly. And I thought that was the first time it was just like, all right, these people are people. And I already told you earlier that everybody's like so friendly. Like when we meet Debbie Millman or Michael Beirut, everybody's so approachable. But I don't know if I ever had that from like the people that I knew from the national board until that retreat. And I just met a lot of really cool people that one. And it just felt a little bit doable, that we're all kind of like in this together type of thing, as opposed to like they're over there and we're over here. So that one was really good. And then the other one was Raleigh. Raleigh was fun, but it was also kind of tough in some ways because so Raleigh was again, Lenny was there and we had a really, really good time. But the reason that one stands out to me is because that Sunday that we left, right? It was the Sunday. So I remember sitting in the hotel room, not in the hotel room, the lobby, waiting for Lenny, who was going to take us to the airport, and that's when we found out about the Pulse shooting in Orlando. So we were in Raleigh, and then we were listening to news about Orlando. So it was really tough, and kind of seeing the news and recognizing the things that were being shown in the news. And then one of our board members at the time, Titty Starks, who has since moved away from Florida, but I just remember in that airplane ride on the way back to Orlando is we were sitting across the aisle from each other. I kept kind of glancing over, and by the time we landed, she already had this event called Love by Design that we put on just a couple weeks later, already figured out, and she put it all together. So I just remember thinking that was, this really, really terrible thing that we had happen to our community. And even though it has nothing to do with design, I think the power of our design community, which is very empathic and very creative in a lot of ways, was able to do something about it. Not only, I think we might have raised some money to the One Pulse Foundation, but also bringing people together and letting them have an opportunity to mourn together. Even though I didn't know anybody that was directly affected or like that was hurt or killed in that shooting, but it felt like it really hit the community really hard, as those things obviously would. But I felt like it's beyond the creative community, it's beyond the design community. It's something we as an organization can support. So those are the two really big things that stand out in how we grew as a chapter and grew as a community here in Orlando.
Wow.
That's incredible. That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, she's great. Tiffany was fantastic. And yeah, it was a really great event that people, just this past week, somebody brought it up to me. And that was however many years later.
So memorable.
Yeah. But leadership retreats were incredible. I miss them. I really do. And the last one that we went to in 2019 was Atlanta. And one thing that kind of was born from that one is it was the last day, and we were all kind of in that room, the big kind of like big meetings, general sessions or whatever they call it. And Anthony Welburn, Antonio, where is he from? He's from like San Antonio or Houston, one of the Texas chapters. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he kind of like stood up and he spoke in Spanish and spoke to like the Spanish speaking members of the AIGA board community, leadership community. And Reina Castellanos was was in Orlando with me. We were part of that, and we were already kind of chatting about there should be kind of like an AIGA Español or something like that. And obviously a few months after that is when the lockdown hit. But from that conversation is where AIGA Unidos came from. And I don't think AIGA Unidos, maybe it would have happened in some other ways, but I don't think it would have happened the way it did without the connections that we met when I met Jimena and I met Antonio and Dio, from Atlanta. And like, so we were all kind of like talking about like, we should do this, we should get together, we should do something for the Spanish speaking community and things like that. And that's what Unidos started off as. So all those things were born from leadership retreats. And that's why I miss them so much, because I think there's a certain energy you come back from, and that energy that you bring back from a leadership retreat kind of infects your board when you come back, whether they went or not. They kind of feel that they were there because you come back with all these new ideas. And we also had these things called Changemakers that we did in Orlando, and that came from Avery Smith, who was on the board at the time in Orlando, met someone, I want to say it's from Seattle. It started in Seattle or Dallas, right? I can't remember who he met, but he brought whatever it is, because that's where you're at, right, Eric? You're in Seattle?
Yeah, I'm in Seattle.
So I want to say it's either Seattle or Portland, and one of those kind of like Pacific Northwest chapters. And he brought the event that you guys were doing in there, and I think it then went to Dallas, and then it was a Changemaker event. So it was really cool. It's always really fun trying to find out like what other chapters are doing and how we can adapt it to our own community. So all those examples were direct correlations from a leadership retreat. And they were fantastic, and they were fun, and they were great.
What was Changemakers? What is that about?
Changemakers was an event where we would recruit people would sign up from the community, and we would break them down into teams. At least this is how we did it. I don't know if like the other chapters did it a little differently. But then we would recruit some nonprofits that needed design works, and those five or so groups would work directly for this nonprofit. So we had we have something in town called Art Reach, which is an art community for K through 12. So we one of the groups rebranded them. We had another group do some branding for this spinal bifida, is that how you pronounce it? An organization that supports that community, and they did branding for them. So it's pretty much using design to change the trajectory of some of these nonprofits. And it was a great event. It was fantastic. I think we did it 2 years. But I think it was from Seattle, or again, one of those chapters up there.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity for nonprofits to have some branding work done, some logo work, some research, and they were tied with AIGA members.
Yeah.
I forget the timeline of things, whether it was a few months or a few weeks. And then there was a show at the end where everybody
Right.
got to show off what they built together. And people from the nonprofit were there, and AIGA was there. And yeah.
Such a great event. We did something like that at AIJ LA. It was called Design for Good, but it was a 24-hour sprint.
Oh, wow.
So you would get briefed, and then you would work in teams, and then 24 hours later, like you would be sleeping in the same room, right? It was a typical like college all-nighter type of thing, or, startup all-nighter, depending. And yeah, you would just have something ready by the end, and you would deliver in 25 hours, and it was great. Put all your focus towards that,
Yeah.
right? And that's all you did. And you were building assets, you were building brands, you were empowering them. And then we got to meet up like 2 weeks later with the nonprofit, and that's when they would have their unveiling. So it was nice.
I think these events are really fantastic, and again, it shows the power of what we can do for community beyond just design.
Right. All born from leadership retreats.
All born from the leadership retreat.
All born from leadership retreats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that leadership retreat.
I know. I know, right?
And it can't be done virtually, right, Vic?
I mean, maybe we could try, but I think how do you do a pyramid in a Zoom call?
You arrange all the squares.
Exactly.
This.
Yeah. I mean, there's something when you have like 3 rows of people on your back, and you're kind of like, your arms are entwined with the person next to you in an effort to like make sure that the people don't fall, and you're holding it for the photo. You're in there, you're in the trenches with each other. You're kind of like in that, and I never could quite figure out if it was better to be at the bottom, all the way at the bottom, with the person all the way at the top, because that person is, precarious situation. So, but those were fun.
Yeah, they are fun. I think that, yes, the programming during the day always sparked some ideas, but it was the after parties, the after parties that really got conversations really going, right?
Yeah.
Like you dug in deeper. You had more time to like figure out the logistics and whatnot, or transfer information. Yeah, 100%.
It's always funny, when you and I were talking about doing this particular stream or podcast today. I was kind of thinking about it, and it was the trajectory of friendships and that thing in those retreats are always kind of fun to me, because you start off like not knowing people's names. So I might see Eric and it's like, "Hey, what's up, Seattle?" And be like, "Oh, what's up, Orlando?" And then eventually it kind of goes to like from like the chapters to like the names. It's like the more you hang out. And then of course we would connect on the social media, and then we kind of like chat. But it was always kind of like, you representing your city. Is like, I remember there was someone that went from one chapter to the other. They went from LA to somewhere else. And I was like, I don't know what to call you anymore. It was Amanda Hobus. Remember Amanda Hobus?
Yes.
Yeah, she's like, you can call me Amanda. I was like, can I know? It's because you're... So yeah, so it's like that trajectory of friendships until you get to your names. It's always fun. I just remember when we started doing something else outside of Adobe, and I saw your name, Rachel, and I was like, surely two people can be called Rachel Elmer. And I texted you, I was like, is this you? Are we on the same meeting for UCF and Adobe? And but you're like, yep, that's me. So it's like you start seeing all these other people like doing amazing things beyond beyond AIGA as well. So it's always kind of like the community of ours is just kind of like all over the place.
So that's a huge attestment to the strength of AIJ, is the fact that, yes, you might be related to one chapter, or you might be involved with one chapter. But when you go from city to city,
Yeah.
for example, like Mike Jesse, who's been in many chapters, or Josh Silverman, you become part of the network as a whole and not just one specific chapter. You feel welcome enough to just go wherever.
Yeah, in that other stream we were talking, or somebody was mentioning how suddenly you had 300 beds, 300 couches all around the community where you or around the country. It's like an AIGA BNB type of thing, where you can just kind of like show up, and yeah, it's funny how it just kind of happens. And sometimes one of the things that we were trying to do post Atlanta leadership retreat, and we left with a lot of energy. So I wish the COVID down having quite messed it up, but we were thinking at that point we had 6 chapters in Florida, so we were trying to do like some sort of mega AIGA Florida kind of event with all 6 chapters. Now we're down to 3, I believe, because we lost a few, 3.5, I think, maybe 4. But it's still kind of like, we're so close to each other and we can do really, really cool things. How do we do that? How do we support each other? How do we support Miami? How does Miami support Orlando and Jacksonville and Gainesville and Tampa and Tallahassee, all these other organizations, because they might be a couple hours away, but we still have like the same kind of like, it's, a lot of the same similarities. So it almost feels like we also take kind of like pride and ownership of the chapters, regardless of where they're at, because we speak, we represent them and they represent us.
Did you come away with any ideas, any takeaways? Like, how do we support each other? How do we get together? What can we do?
We tried to a few times. We did meet the chapters, the different 6, or I don't know if everybody showed up, but we did meet a couple of times to try to come up with a plan. I think the idea at the time was, since Orlando is the most centralized, maybe we can meet here and everybody, we can have some sort of kind of like event to try to kind of like do that. I know that we would drive, a couple of us, for instance, drove up to Jacksonville for their poster show to represent and to support them. We traveled down during the reboot of Miami to represent them, and I went to 1 or 2 Tampa Bay chapter events. So we did try to do that kind of thing. Of course, Jen from Gainesville, Jen Ford, that's how I met her. I met her before Gainesville was a chapter, and she would come to the Orlando events. So we did try to support each other in that sense. And maybe there's still an opportunity as we keep growing to kind of like rebuild that. But we just have a fewer chapters in our state now.
I hope other chapters can find a way to support each other. I think that's really what's needed now.
I agree. I think, and that's, I mean, I've gone on my rant with you. I sent Rachel like a text the other day, just kind of like, because I was thinking about it before you go to sleep, and you have all those stories. So when I woke up the next morning, I was like, I gotta get this out, or I'm gonna totally forget the little details. But I do think there is an energy that those leadership retreats brought in, and there's a lot of institutional knowledge all around the country and different chapters that the newer chapters or the chapters that are rebuilding can benefit from. And I think one of the things that's missing right now is that connection, connecting with, where was Doug Stuckey from? He wasn't from Kansas City, was he?
Topeka.
Topeka, Kansas.
Or
Yeah.
Wichita. No, it was
Wichita.
Wichita. You're right. Not
Yeah.
Topeka. Sorry, Doug.
Yeah. No, but he was great. I mean, I met him one of the leadership retreats, and he was just like full of amazing ideas, and he helped us out a lot when I was going into my presidency. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of stories that we have. Gage is another one. Brendan is another one. So Brendan Shanley is
Shanley.
Shanley. So you have all these things that I think that's we have a lot of chapters in like feeling a lot of burnout, and I think that's what we're missing. I think we're missing a little bit of the camaraderie that we used to have. So the chapters don't feel like they're so isolated, so that they feel like there's other people going through the same thing. And I don't know if only leadership calls can do that. I think the leadership calls go a long way, but I think there needs to be other connections. And maybe we start back up with these virtual retreats until we can do something else. But I do feel like there needs to be more mentorship in the within chapters and things like that to kind of like help each other through them.
Are you seeing that also with your students? Are you seeing people thirsting for that community, or are there enough smaller communities out there that are kind of like, they're kind of satiating that thirst just a little bit?
I can only speak for Orlando, but I think in Orlando we have a lot of really great communities that
Yeah.
people can be a part of. We have UX communities. We have AAF is very active here, the American Advertising Federation, right? And the marketing, I forgot what the marketing's one is, but they're really active. So Orlando has a lot of really great active professional organizations that speak to their community. So we're lucky in that sense. The students, so my students have something called the Graphic Design Student Association, which is like an AIGA, but for students. I think they tried years ago to try to make an AIGA chapter, but we found some sort of like student government rule or something. There was some sort of hiccup. But we still do that. So there's, even the events that they put on, there's a lot of, they do workshops and speakers, the same thing we kind of do at the chapter level. And a lot of the students, other students react very positively to that. And I always tell them, like, if I would encourage you guys to find your group, but if you can't find your group, if you don't find a group that's really kind of like checking off the boxes that you want, then make your own group. It doesn't have to be, I'm not going to be hurt if I have AIG over here or GDSA and you don't come to you start your own groups. Like, start a community, start whatever speaks to you specifically. That's why I started Giant Illustrators, even before I was an AIGA, because I felt like I needed to be around other illustrators that were doing the same thing. I mean, ultimately we just sit around and kind of draw and talk geekery, which is cool, which is great. The kind of stuff we do, but at least you're kind of like in a like-minded thing, and we can, and that's led to other things too, and we can support each other that way. So I think being a part of something bigger than yourselves, I think, is really important for you, for the growth of a student, just a student's career, but also a student's leadership.
Yeah. Would you be where you are without AIJ?
No, I don't think so. I think I would be, I don't know, I think I'd be more isolated. I think, I would go to the AIGA events locally before I was a board member, and I would, talk to the people I knew, but I wouldn't interact with the speakers. I would rarely interact with other people, because they were the cool kids, and it's kind of tough being, trying to immerse yourself in the cool kids. But then I realized that the cool kids thought the other group was the cool kids, and everybody's thinking each other's the cool kids and not talking. But I don't know. I don't think I would. I think I would be still a little bit more isolated and introverted. I think I would still be kind of like a person to attend it, but I don't know if I would I don't know if I would be like the community leader, or at least what people think I am right now. So no, and I don't think so. I don't think I would be.
I used to always attend events. And yeah, I was never the person who would stand in line afterwards to talk to the speaker. I would just go and get what I needed and then leave and whatnot. It was not until I actually started volunteering that made a huge difference on who I was. So my question to you is, like, when you jumped into leadership, do you feel like that had a great effect in terms of who you are now?
I do. One of the things that somebody told me early on about, like, one of the reasons I should join AIGA is because everybody has an opinion about who should come to speak or what kind of events we should have and things like that. So the best way to make sure that you're getting the events that you want is to organize them yourself. And I was like, all right, that's good. I want to do that. So I think in that sense, and once I did it a little bit with the chapter and I learned from other people, from my co-board members, and being able to see how they do it, I realized, all right, this is doable. I can do this. And one thing led to another. It's like, oh, I want this person. I'd love to meet this person. I want to meet Tad Carpenter. I was like, let's bring Kelly Anderson in and let's see, because I love their work, right? So, and then being able to connect with those people and really having those good conversations. So no, I think I grew a lot as leadership, and mostly because it has showed me the possibilities of what I was able to do. Like before that, I was like, oh, that's something only somebody else is able to do or capable of doing. But now after I got into this, I was like, oh no, that's something I can do, and it's and I can actually teach other people to do it as well. And but it's weird. I was thinking about it earlier today when we were talking about we were having a conversation and Rick Griffith's name came up, and when he came down and I picked him up at the airport, and he's just a fantastic guy. He was like very warm, and he's kind of like we. I just remember thinking after he left that some of my favorite conversations with Rick had nothing to do with the design. We were talking about, the Smiths or just music in general or or whatever it was. And I had, I had the opportunity to have dinner with him just one-on-one. And he gave me some kind of like, family advice, which I thought was really insightful, that kind of like helped me, pointed me in a good direction. So it's those connections where it just felt like I was within people that kind of like thought very similar to me and could understand what my ideas were or what I was trying to do or what I was going through. And being a part of the chapter on the board level, it just gave me license to be able to say, yeah, I can do this. I can work with other people, and hopefully I can teach other people how to do this. And hopefully when I'm ready to roll off, I've helped, because I never do it myself, I've helped lay a foundation that others can build on. Because one thing that I think, if anything, that I've learned is that none of these things that I've been a part of doing, none of these achievements that we've done, they've never been like, I did this. This has always been like a team effort, whether it's Creative Mornings or AIGA, Devin and Tibby and all these people that I've had the honor to work with. It's been this group effort, this collaborative effort. So that goes to what I learned about leadership too, which is it's not a solo thing, it's a team thing.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I have to say, there's a lot of insights that you are surfacing that I have not heard before. So I think this has
So good.
just been like filled with lots of gold nuggets.
Yeah, for sure. And your commitment to community is very clear. You could tell that it's given you something, and you've also, given the community even more, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
If I feel like I have no time to dedicate to 5 different communities, I just need to look at you, and I know that it is possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're my hero for sure. Thank you,
Great.
Vic. I really
Rebecca,
appreciate the time.
Thank you both for having me. This has been really fun and fantastic.
Cheers. Yeah.
Of course, it's great to see you again.
Yeah.
Great to see you, and hopefully we can do this again. Let's keep in touch a little bit more.
Let's do that.
Let's have more reunions or something like that.
Yeah.
Let's plan.
Yeah. Let's do that, even if it's virtual.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Vic. Appreciate the time again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Both take care.
Have a good
All
night.
right, you too.
You too.
See ya.
Okay.
Oh, just, yeah.
Quite inspiring, I have to say. Very inspiring. The fact that he's involved in so many communities and that he's giving, and that I love the fact that he says he leans on his team instead of just doing it all. It's great. Cheers and Tears will be back next time with more design leadership tales retold.
Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast with your creative community, design leaders, and friends.
Cheers and Tears Design Leadership Tales Retold is a production of Chapter 2 and hosted by us, Rachel Elnar and Eric Cargill. This episode was produced and edited by Rachel Elnar. Podcast graphics by Eric Cargill. Animation by Verso Design and Megatoe Design.
The theme music track is Loose Ends by Silver Ships Plastic Oceans. Follow Cheers and Tears on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube podcasts, or wherever you get your audio and video podcasts. Subscribe to our email list at cheersandtears.com so you don't miss an episode.